Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Paddock podcast. Joining me are two absolute giants of the Manchester United fan base. We've got Mr. Joe Smith.
Oh,
you all right? Why are you laughing? You are?
It's just funny, isn't it? It's a good thing to be called.
Well, I
nice.
completely stand by my description of you. You good?
Yeah, I'm very well. Are you?
You basking in the glory of an epic 1-0 win over Luton?
I am a bit.
Yeah.
We'll get into the why I'm sort of maybe overexcited, but I am, and I'm loving it.
Hey, we like being cheerful. That's what we're about. Talking of being cheerful.
Like you're basking in it a little bit.
Hey, talking of happiness and cheer. Hey, it's Mr. Ronaldo Brown, my partner in crime. How are we?
I've never committed a crime before. Don't listen to him at
What
all.
we are.
But no, I'm doing all right. I didn't actually quite realise the run that we actually have been on with the amount of wins that we've actually accumulated. Obviously, the performances we've not been happy with, so I think we got lost in that. But in terms of on a results basis,
yeah,
we can't complain too much.
We're going to get into it.
Yeah.
I want to put some caveats here before everyone starts trolling us. Because we're aware of the performances. We're aware of who the positive wins have been against. Yeah, we are.
I'm not having that.
We are going to have some rational perspective here. Yeah. But mixed in with that might be a little bit of optimism.
Let's be optimistic.
Do you know what with me? It's not even optimism. It's defiance.
Yes.
Yeah? I'm not having it. I'm not having some of the criticism that's thrown our way from Muppets who've got nothing to do with Manchester United Football Club. I'm not having that. So we're going to get into that. Most importantly, just anyone who works for TalkSport for starters, anyone who works for Sky, including Gary Neville, and anyone else who supports another club.
Yeah. And
Dermot Gallagher, you can throw him in there as well. Get involved in the comments in the chat though. What I hear from you lot. Joseph,
yes.
What are people saying immediate? What's the immediate impact of people jumping on the comments?
People are asking for some toxic positivity, which is what we want.
I love that.
Which I love that phrase. I remember when I was sort of trying to defend Solskjaer, and not just me, everyone, but I remember seeing it directed at me. People calling me, saying it was toxic positivity.
Didn't you form a band in secondary school called Toxic Positivity?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, but you and your mate, a duo, like the modern day.
I forgot you was in a band.
Yeah, I was in a band actually, but we weren't called Toxic Positivity. People saying hello to Ronaldo. People saying don't get giddy. Do not get giddy. Well, we can get as giddy as we want, and I do want to be positive because there's been plenty of time this season. What?
Are you talking about? When you say we can get giddy, you're referring to me?
No, well, I'm saying we as United fans.
Joe can say we about me and him. If he wants.
Yeah,
I don't mind.
I just mean United fans in general. But also, there's been so much opportunity to be negative this season. And not just opportunity, but necessity to be negative.
It's become a little bit grating.
Yeah, so let's have a go at being positive where we can. And I try and pitch in a little bit of positivity where possible. But for once, there's actually a little bit of reason to be.
Yeah.
Now, Ten Hag has done a sort of... It's a very deft technique here because I want to be positive, and yes, we're on the best current form of anyone in the Premier League. Last 5 games,
and that is the real quiz.
More points than anyone. However, what he's done is he's done this sneaky little trick of inserting a loss in the Carabao and a loss in the Champions League into this run.
He's spread them out.
Yeah, so it feels shit.
Yeah.
But actually, if you take a step back and just look at it competition by competition, one specific competition has actually been quite good recently.
If United's matches were a pizza base, he's sprinkled his cheese of losses evenly.
Yeah.
There's not one big mound of losses of cheese in the middle over here, and it's barren everywhere else.
Yeah.
It's even. I quite like that. It's clever, like you said.
And in terms of toppings,
go on.
It is just a margarita because the toppings would be the likes of Rashford scoring a goal, Garnacho scoring a goal, Højlund scoring a goal. We don't have any of that. So it is unfortunately just a margarita pizza. But you know what? Margarita pizza is
probably
still
the most popular in the world.
Probably the most popular in the world of all the pizzas.
Do you reckon?
I would say so.
Is that correct?
The answer is always the most obvious one, isn't it?
I thought it'd be pepperoni.
No, because a lot of people don't eat pork.
So you discounted like 2/3 of the world there.
I was going to say, you've got a few billion.
A quarter of the world.
Don't cancel.
Eating that.
Yeah, don't cancel. Ronnie gets cancelled for saying pepperoni's the most popular pizza. That's it, career ending.
That would be great.
It was all going so well.
So if we do have a look at some of the stats then. So best form in the league in the last 5 games, 4 wins, 1 loss. Obviously, I don't need to say it because it's better than everyone, but better than saying it.
Yeah.
Above us in the league, obviously Liverpool, 3 wins, 2 draws in that time, so they've dropped 1 more point than us. City, 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Spurs, 3 wins, 2 losses. So from 1 point above Chelsea to 5, so we've pulled away from Chelsea.
That's good considering they've rallied a little bit.
Yeah, and it seems as though they've had a really good run and we haven't, and yet we've pulled away from them.
I think actually Chelsea have done the complete opposite to what United have done. They've had a lot of shit performances and losses against teams they shouldn't lose against.
Yeah.
But then they've had these slap bang statement
4 goals against Manchester City. Like, come on, let's not normalise that.
Yeah, but we got 3 against him at the Etihad last year.
Exactly, I know.
If you ignore the 6 they got against us, it's a great result.
It's made Chelsea seem like they're in better form than they have, just because they've done performances people didn't expect because of their form outside of playing City and Tottenham.
Do you not feel as well, right, Ronnie? Or both, either of you, like, a lot of it is just that little bit of luck as well that comes into it. Like, Chelsea obviously got that result against Spurs, and they deserved to win, but those red cards led to that win. And
it did.
And you can go, well, a red card is a red card, that's not luck. But on other days, you're not getting that luck. You're not getting those decisions, or you're not getting players doing that.
Now, I think Tottenham started that game extremely well. The first 10 minutes they were flying. But I actually think Chelsea were growing into the game even before the red cards happened.
Right, okay.
If I'm honest.
No, I'll give you that. Thinking back, I think you make a good point.
But obviously the red made it worse. And kind of swayed it much more towards Chelsea. But I think Chelsea were growing into the game. Obviously Chelsea are more built towards playing these bigger sides. That's been obvious now.
Yeah.
But I think on the flip side of us, they've had these 2 performances against City and Tottenham, who were the informed teams that they expected to lose against. And they've been involved in these exceptional spectacles and almost cinematic games. And that's kind of made people think that Chelsea are in better form than they actually are. And outside of it, they've been underwhelming against other teams. I think they lost to Brentford.
They lost to Brentford 2-0, yeah.
And so, whereas we've been piling up a few results in terms of wins, but the performance hasn't been there. So that means it's been viewed as in a different way. Plus, United always get scrutinised in the media a lot differently and much more than Chelsea do. We all know that anyway. I think more than most clubs, to be honest with you.
Do you know what it is with Chelsea as well, though? They have got players, like, and I hate the term on his day. On their day, it seems like we speak about that all the time. We talk about United players. On his day, he's one of the best in the world.
Do you know what?
I say that about everyone. But Chelsea do have a lot of players like that.
Do you know what? I think if you ever have to say on his day about a player, they can't be world class.
Well, we've been saying that about players since Fergie retired at United. Sorry, we have.
If you've got to say a player on his day, that player is automatically not world class. Then.
Okay,
because I think the definition of world class has changed, though, hasn't it? Because there's so many players. Like, you look back 20 years ago, there were so few players that were basically top level every week or most weeks every season, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in a row, 10 years in a row sometimes. No, that didn't exist almost.
But I think the major component of being world class is consistency.
Yeah, but
I think that's what kind of.
I think people would have world class peaks that were shorter. Someone like Kaka, no one would say he wasn't a world class player.
Well, you're on about periods of time. I'm more about just week to week.
No, I know you are, but I'm saying that, like, the concept of world class, I think, has gone from being you have to be world class for a season or 2 in a row. That would be considered world class.
Yeah.
Now you have to be that good for 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. I think someone like De Bruyne or Salah or players like that, clearly world class. They do it every single year. But I think if you look back, like I said before, someone like Kaka or Nedved or certain players around that era, they wouldn't have been at their very best for as long, and they would still be considered world. Because I don't know if it's nutrition or training methods or whatever, but people can, like Messi and Ronaldo being at the level they have been, and Harry Kane even, was it like 7 years in a row he's got 20 goals plus, or 10 years in a row, something insane.
And now he's gone to Bayern and he's already on like this. He's on he's on a Ballon d'Or trajectory already.
I think some players who would have been considered world class aren't anymore because they don't have it for as long.
That's the problem a lot of the time with world class, is it's subjective. Even the very term itself, you could think, you could go, well, I'll tell you what, Casado's world class, look at what he did at Brian. You go, is he? Like, is he doing that, you say, consistently? Has he done it since he got to Chelsea? Consistently? We say, no, but look at some of the performances he's put in, whereas you might go, like you're saying, the benchmark might be, pains me to say it, but someone like a De Bruyne or a Salah, who for 7, 8 seasons or whatever it is, or
just relentless production. Do you know what I mean?
One of the best players in the world every year.
Yeah, I would say Bruno's world class, or has been world class. He had 3 years in a row where he was getting 20 plus goals. For a midfielder, I think that is a world class spell, and therefore looking on his career and him as a player, I think he is world clas. But he's certainly had spells or seasons even where you go on, he becomes an on his day player. But I still think he's world class.
The subjectivity is right, especially because with world class, like sometimes you have players that might have world class talent, but their actual performances and consistency isn't world class. Because what they always say is, for you to actually be seen as world class, is you make the decisions you make the right decisions in the game more often than other players, and also you actually have that level of consistency game in, game out from the likes of Salah. And Salah's just like an absolute output machine.
Yep.
Doesn't tail off. De Bruyne, players like that. Players that I'd like, you know what you're going to get almost week in, week out, and if they ever drop below, people start to say obviously Saka is now probably a world-class right winger. He's done it for a sustained period of time. He very rarely actually drops his performance. Whereas when players almost have these purple patches, or the one game they're great, the next game they're shy, and it's like a little bit of a roller coaster. And then you've also got to use terms as on their day. I think if you've got to use the term on their day for a player, I'm always a bit concerned by it.
Where'd you put Casemiro in that bracket? Out of curiosity.
Casemiro was
when we got him, everyone was saying he's world class.
He was world class. He's been world class for years.
Would you still say he is now?
But I think right now he's probably dropped a level below that because he's on the decline. But he had a long period of time when we first signed him of probably being borderline our best player, and was still performing at a world class level. But in recent times he has dropped below that, and that does happen. Obviously, being especially now in the position that he plays in as a central defensive midfielder, I think that's quickly becoming one of the most important positions in football, and also probably one of the most demanding. I think your weaknesses get exploited a little bit more, especially because I think he actually showed us, this is the kind of the unfairness on someone like Casemiro. Casemiro was world class in a world class team for Real Madrid, where he had less responsibility and burden, when he was probably a little bit fitter, a little bit stronger, and probably a little bit of a better player and more on his peak. And now he's come to United, where he's kind of shined like on a decline from his peak, but he's got more responsibility and more burden. So
it's
almost like.
Can I throw another name into to you as well? And it's difficult because he's not really played this season. Where do you think Luke Shaw fits into this category? Because he's a player that almost feels a little bit of both. Like on his day, he's probably as good as any left back on the planet.
Yeah,
but
I think
he's
just
that consistency.
No, I think you would say he's below world class.
Yeah, I think that's
he's had too many off years.
I think that's a fair comment. I was just curious because there's a player there who, if you watch him, you think there's certain games where you go.
For me, he's had 3 fantastic seasons. He had last season, was brilliant.
Okay.
The one before that.
Yeah.
So Solskjaer's last season.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
And his injury season.
Yeah,
and I agree with his injury.
And I think
his injury season, just before he got injured, those few months, he was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
I think anywhere other than that, he's been anywhere from not bad to is he leaving the club? And I think
there was a time when Ashley Young and Brandon Williams have been preferred to him.
Yeah,
like not because of
Solskjaer's first season.
Yeah, not because of injury. I'm talking about he's available, and the manager's decided to go another way.
I don't think there's that many. I don't think there's that many world class fullbacks right now. Anyway, to be honest with you.
Just to change subject, well, not change subject.
I just
to
want
go away
to
from United slightly.
Go on.
And we talk about this sometimes. I want to come back to United. Obviously, we're going to talk about Ten Hag and
hit that like button as well, please, people.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to say that.
But a player that I think might be the most underspoken about player in ratio to how many trophies and games they've won at the top level. Like, no one talks about this player.
I know where you're going with this because you've told me, and you were right. Because when you said it, I went, oh yeah.
He's won everything multiple times.
Put it to him.
Dani Carvajal.
Oh.
Like, he plays every single week for Real Madrid, wins La Ligas, wins multiple Champions Leagues, just plays all the time. And you never hear anything about him. No one mentions him. You don't see interviews with him. He's not lauded. No one even knows really what his play style is. Like,
do you think that? He's kind of gone on the radar because he's literally one of the most successful players in the history of football.
Yeah, let's go through what he is.
Dani Carvajal might be almost like, if you want to equate it to any person, he's like the Real Madrid Gary Neville.
Yeah.
He's won everything.
He's won 3 La Ligas, 2 Copa del Reys, 3 Spanish Super Cups, 5 Champions Leagues, 4 European Super Cups, 5 FIFA Club World Cups. Like, he's won the Nations League as well, which isn't particularly much, but he's won it. At domestic level, he could not have won more. And no one talks about it.
That's the thing. It's not what he's won. It's the fact that no one brings him in. We have these arguments or conversations about the best fullback, or fullback that deserves respect, or put respect on his name, or is this, that, and the other. He's never in that convo. I never hear him.
He was more mentioned for being a bit of a loose cannon in our Clásicos a little bit. A little bit of a needly man. But you can't play that long, that consistently in a starting 11.
No.
at right back for Real Madrid if you aren't a great player, especially because it's a team that obviously has a lot of demand in terms of winning stuff, but also they've got basically unlimited amount of money to go and replace you.
Yeah.
So it's like if Carvalho's managed to keep his place at right back for that long for Real Madrid, then
how old is he?
31.
Yeah.
I would genuinely
you thought it was
say,
older, didn't it? I remember.
No, I thought it was about that.
Yeah.
I would honestly say, in terms of trophies won to like words spoken about this human being
I
ratio,
agree on this.
no one
I think that's a really
has
good
got
point.
a higher ratio
Because
of him than
it's
that.
not even the fact that people don't rate him, whether it's people don't chat about
Have you
him.
ever had a conversation about it?
I spend a lot of time on Twitter, and you see arguments about every player on the planet, right, constantly. And yet, very rarely someone throws his name into the hat in any way, shape, or form.
There's a term for this. Is it just aesthetic bias?
Maybe.
What is what?
Like aesthetics.
Like how he looks.
Bias.
Yeah.
Just what he looks
Because
like.
I think there's a lot of that in football now, especially the way that people visualize the game. It's almost like it's about play styles and how someone looks when they're playing football rather than their actual productivity and what they actually offer to a team. And I think some players actually suffer from that a little bit. I think Carvajal suffers from a bit of aesthetic bias. I think Thingy suffers from that now as well, actually, for Chelsea. Conor Gallagher. I think Conor Gallagher will never ever get the kind of the ratings and the plaudits that he should get because he's not that aesthetic of a player in terms of the way he plays and looks. But in terms of what his actual,
like Fernandez or whatever,
yeah,
like you look at him, you can look at him and go, wow.
Whereas you got players for the opposite, where you got players that look very pretty, the way they play football, but they're actually not producing that much.
He looks. If you watch,
people say that about João Felix.
You watch St. Maximin play. You watch João Felix play. You think he's the best player in the world.
Yeah.
I've seen St. Maximin have like 20-minute spells in games where you go, you're another species to knocking it, skilling round, and then you look 3 goals, 3 assists in 41 games this season. You're like, how is this possible? Like, and then you got people who are the opposite. Like, and Gary Neville's a great example. You watch him play. And he's not particularly exciting or... Do
you know what Gary Neville's... Macro
700 games from
spot on, right? The trouble with Gary Neville is he goes on the telly and downplays his career constantly.
Yeah, he does.
And he does it like... Someone like Jamie Carragher will do this sort of like... All this... Not passive-aggressiveness, but like almost semi-reminding everyone that he was good.
Yeah.
Whereas Neville does the opposite. Neville will go on and go, I was just lucky enough to be surrounded by great players like what you just said there about Dani Carvajal. You don't get in that United team under Fergie for 15 years, whatever it was, or 12 years, winning like almost more titles than anyone's ever won if you're not mint. Because Fergie just get rid of you.
He played 600 times for United.
Yeah, and he acts like he had like 5 good games for us. And during that time, he was up against the Rivaldos, the Figos of this world, just the best players ever. And he was playing against them and winning Champions Leagues during that time as well. So it's not like he was a duffer. And I think he suffers from it. He'll go on the telly and go, we're not great. And then people who've never seen him play will go, Gary Neville was just lucky because he had Beckham or Ronaldo or whoever in his team. He weren't even that great. He says so himself. When that's nonsense, he was and is. Let's talk about Ten Hag then.
Yes.
Because this is a manager who has probably been under more pressure than pretty much anyone this season, I think, in the Premier League. Maybe other than like...
sacked next,
maybe you throw in
the
kid at Sheffield United is at Eckenbottom.
Yeah.
But other than like, certainly in the top half of the table, there's been more pressure on Erik Ten Hag than anyone for a multitude of reasons. One, obviously we've lost a lot of games. There's no point pretending. 2, you've got this takeover, so people are going, well, so Jim's going to come in. He fancies someone else. 3, I think United as a fan base are quite divided and quite quick to jump on managers. I think we've seen it with every single manager we've had post Fergie. Like, you have a sort of section of the fan base that back a manager, and then you have another section of the fan base who are often almost waiting to pounce.
Yeah.
We had it with Moyes is a bit too sort of one-sided. Everyone had enough of Moyes, but you had it with Van Gaal, you had it with Jose, you had it with Wally, Ragnick, and you've got it now with Ten Hag, where after that honeymoon period of last season, where we won obviously a trophy, finished 3rd. Once the wheels started coming off a bit this season, people started getting very vocal very quickly. Now, I don't think that's the majority of fans by any stretch of imagination, but there's more than just a couple. There's like a good part of the fan base who are like, he's not the guy. So he's had to take all this, and yet he seems to, for me, it's rare that I'm too bothered about what happens in press conferences because I've done enough of them to know he's often meaningless. But I was impressed with him the other week where he came out in that press conference. He looked like he had a bit of fire in his belly. He was sort of explaining himself in a way that I could buy into, whether it comes true or not, sticking to his guns, going for it and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then I think in terms of performances, he's got some results in the league, and I felt in Copenhagen, and I'll die on this hill, we were robbed. It was that red card that did for us, and I think that was not the manager's fault at all. It was a decision that should have gone the other way, in my opinion. So, I don't know, I feel like Ten Hag, he's showing a bit of fight, and that's what I want from him. And he's showing it in both the football. It's not perfect, so I'm not going to get carried away with a win over Luton, but we're seeing something, like the players are responding.
I think that you need that, and you see when a manager's about to get sacked, more often than not, the manager knows they're about to get sacked.
Yeah.
And we've all seen it hundreds of times.
I honestly started to think that this what you're actually describing, where you can almost see where a manager's slightly, they get a little bit desperate, and you almost can tell that But do you think we saw that? I think we saw definitely saw the beginning of that.
I don't know. I think just as it felt like it was getting to a point where he's being asked questions that he sort of fundamentally can't answer, like why aren't we seeing tactics? Why aren't we seeing a style of play? These things where it's like, well, there's so many reasons I can't sit and explain it to you in a succinct way. But I do think like that one where he came out and said, I'm a fighter. My players are fighters. Like we're going to fight through this. I think that we've seen in the last week or two a pushback against that from him, and a little bit of a reaction from the players where the performance against Copenhagen, again, it's weird to say this about a loss, but in terms of how we set up, how we made chances, how we held the ball, until the red card, was comfortably the best so far this season. Against a difficult team away from home, we looked like we had an identity. And just to see that, even if it was just a flicker in a game we ultimately lost, to me is a good sign of, you can't accuse Ten Hag of not knowing how to build up from the back, or like some of the things that it's become acceptable to accuse him of, which we never would have up until this point, of you don't have a style of play, you don't have any tactics, this, that, and the other. Well, he obviously does. Because how has he got to the point where he has in his career without that? We saw it at Ajax. We saw it for good chunks last season as well. And I think some of that had to be sort of squashed by that. And even against Luton, I know we only won 1-0, but again, Ten Hag can't make Højlund get the ball in the back of the net, or Garnacho have a shot quicker when he's one-on-one with the keeper, or Rashford score when he's one-on-one with the keeper. All Ten Hag can do is help his players build through the pitch, make space, make chances, score goals. He can't actually do it himself.
Yeah.
And the game against Luton, we should have won that comfortably. Even just from the chances we had, should have been 3-0, let alone the chances you then get when you scored 3 goals.
Sorry,
like it's a snowball. If you're 3 goals up, more chances come because the players are demoralised, etc., etc. All of those chances we made and missed were at 1-0 or 0-0. So they're harder to make because they've still got, right, if we stay tough, we can win this game, Luton, or we can get a draw. So I think we never get to see that.
Because the perception is so different if one of those other chances goes in. If it's a 2-0 or 3-0, people go, okay, you comfortable one. Because it's 1-0, people go in. And we've seen it. You scrapes a win against Luton and all the rest of it. And I'm not, like I say, look, Luton can be a difficult team to beat.
That's the thing, though. But
we saw him get a point against Liverpool. And they can be, I know it was at home, they can be difficult. I expect us to beat Luton. But we did. That's the thing.
It is true, but you can't say, if we scored those chances, the fact is we have players that aren't putting the chances away and they haven't scored them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So that's
what I'm saying, is it's not Ten Hag's fault that they are missing chances one-on-one.
It's not at all, obviously. It's a collaborative thing. Sometimes it's more the player's fault, sometimes it's the manager's fault. I think Steve told me something like about a year ago in some research he did, or a book he read, that literally the differences that actually managers actually make is very minuscule in terms of. He said
it's a small percentage.
It's a very, very small percentage of the influence that actually managers have on a football club, the way they team, if they win points. It is very player generated. I think you can argue some managers might have more of an influence than others.
Yeah.
So I think you can always put the foot of the blame at the players because they're the ones out on the pitch actually playing football and not the manager. But I think there's still certain things with setups and substitutions and stuff that you can criticise, but when you do if you're going to talk about stuff like basic chances and whatever, and people scoring and people missing, and that does definitely go down to the player. But I think it's just that people want to be enthralled by a United performance, and I think some of the performances, even though we're winning, they're just a little bit underwhelming. And you can't be too upset about 3 points though, because and accumulating wins. But
go on, sorry.
I think it's what it is that people are surprised about our recent run of form.
Yeah.
And how good it actually is compared to how we played, because obviously it's been very doom and gloom, very negative, like you said. I think it got to a point where do you feel like watching United and the whole kind of negativity around it was almost draining as a fan?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I think it's one of those where you kind of think the performances do need to actually still improve and actually match the results, because football always has a funny way of like swinging roundabouts. Like it'll revert back to the mean. So we'll have these same performances and end up losing games 1-0, end up losing games 2-0, and then we're back to square one.
I think there's a lot to talk about in terms of personnel. And I personally can't. There's a maximum level United can play at with the players currently available to us in terms of midfield and defence. Obviously, our attack is at pretty much full strength, so the fact we aren't scoring goals is a massive issue. But every team, if they had their entire back four out, would struggle. The fact that we still don't have Luke Shaw playing, we're not going to have Martinez for another 2 months, and every game he's played this season has been either partially or totally injured for. So even the Martinez we saw wasn't the real Martinez. Harry Maguire's been arguably our best player for the last, month? And we already know his ceiling, which he's playing at roughly now, is pretty good, but it's not Martinez last season levels on the ball in terms of the ability to play out, control games. So when Harry Maguire's your best player, everyone else is below that. There's a limit to how well you can play. And that's not a dig at Harry Maguire, but like with Martinez and Varane last season, we saw levels above that. I think this idea of playing world-class football, winning every week, with no back four that we've pretty much had for the last sort of, 6 weeks, is almost impossible. Like, if any team loses their back four, especially a team that plays out from the back, you're going to struggle to win games.
Look at how important one player can be so important to a team. Like, look at your mate Saliba. When Arsenal lost him,
my mate,
I'm no mate. Love him. You're a big fan of his, though.
I'm not a mate with no Arsenal player. Don't ever say that.
I say Saliba because I've heard you praising. I know he's not your mate.
I respect his quality,
but look at what happened when he went missing, or when he got injured. Sorry. Look at the Scousers a couple of years ago with Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah,
like
with Rodri this season.
Rodri, he was out for 3 games. He lost all three. Like Martinez is our most important player under Erik Ten Hag. He just is, and we haven't had him this season because when he did play, he wasn't fit. He doesn't get hooked at half time against Wolves if he's fully fit. He just doesn't. Right? He's not getting the Cunha tearing him a new one if he's fully fit. Right? That just ain't happening. So we've not had him at all this season. Right? But Erik Ten Hag, I think he's got the right approach, because when he went into the press conference I was talking about, where he stuck up for himself, and it was put to him about injuries, and it was put to him about January transfer signings, and he said, I've got players here who I can rely on. He didn't go, oh yeah, we need to buy more players, or oh yeah, I'm missing so many players, it's shocking. He said, nah, the players I've got are good enough, which is what you want to hear from a manager, because you see at other clubs, Kieran Trippier the other day, he starts rowing with one of his own fans, saying, he may as well have said, basically, all my teammates are crap, because he went, look at all the injuries we've got. And all the Newcastle fans go, oh yeah, he's right. And then all the the media go, yeah, fair play to Kieran Trippier. I ain't got a problem with a player talking to fans, if I'm being honest. I ain't got a problem with that. But he's going, look at the injuries we've got, and people go, oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah, imagine that was United. People go, you're losing it. The wheels have come off. All the players have lost their heads. It's like there's this narrative or this sort of media frenzy with United where we're judged differently to a lot of other teams. So when Martinez is out, no one really gives any credit for that. No one goes, oh well, they've lost their most important defender, and if he's not, then Luke Shaw is, and we've lost both of them. No one really makes too much of a fuss about that. When the manager sticks up for his players or whatever, people sort of don't acknowledge that. It's more or less of he's deluded himself or kidding himself or whatever. I just feel that whilst performances do need to improve, I acknowledge that there is an element of ignorance when it comes to the media and it comes to certain pundits, when it comes to the problems that United have got under Erik Ten Hag that aren't his fault.
Yeah, and look at Tottenham at the weekend. Like, they've lost some crucial players, and you can almost compare them to some of United's injuries. Obviously, immediately, Van de Ven, Martinez, direct comparison. Yeah, you lose a lot there. Maddison, he's only been out 1 game, but you can maybe compare that to Casemiro being injured or out of form as we've seen this season. And then Richarlison, I don't even know. Were you comparing him to Martial or something? I don't know.
Romero.
In terms of
Romero's a big one, but again, he's suspended, so he'll be back
Doggy
soon.
the left back. Is it Doggy? Yeah.
So that's like Luke Shaw being out. Romero's like Varane being out.
You cursed that, by the way, you cursed Spurs.
Good.
With your team.
No, everyone
fantasy team.
Everyone's all Tottenham players in my team.
And they all got either red cards or red carded.
I literally had Maddison, Udogie, and I think Son as well. It's absolutely disgraceful. But what I'm saying is, the whole media Oh, so
Spurs injuries, yeah.
I'm so sorry, Ange. It must be so hard. Like I don't even know. Like the Tottenham training ground has just collapsed or something.
Tottenham have been the media darling.
Of course, yeah. But it's like
because Ange's this big friendly bloke who no one saw coming, and he's nice, and he genuinely seems like a good bloke.
He seems like a decent geezer.
Everyone likes him. He's a likeable bloke. But then that means that Tottenham then get this, and they've just absolutely bottled a 1-0 lead. And if you look at the stats and if you watch the game, Wolves could easily have scored more goals than they did. I think they started well, Tottenham, but then they decided actually, they looked scared. For the first time this season, I thought Tottenham looked scared against Wolves, and it cost them in the end. And yet when it's United with those similar sorts of injuries, and if we're honest, throughout the season, we've had much worse injuries for much longer than they have. This is basically all their players got injured in one game. So for 11 games they had everyone, and for one game they haven't. And it's like, it's no wonder they keep losing every week because it's so hard for them. And when it's United, Ten Hag's got to do more. They've got to get more out of Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire, I'm afraid.
It's like going back to last season though. Like Postecoglou loses Kane before he gets there, basically, or as he gets there, right? Which I get. Losing a player like Harry Kane is massive. Yeah. When Ten Hag arrived, Ronaldo was halfway out the door. That's your top scorer from the season before with 18 Premier League goals. So regardless of whether you think Ronaldo's passed it or not, that is the guy that was getting all the goals for us. He's more or less wants to leave as soon as Ten Hag gets there.
Refused to come in for
refused to come in training. It's a year ago today, I think, that he did that interview with Piers Morgan, which ended his United career.
Yeah.
And we were in a position where Ten Hag was given no funds to replace him. And we didn't have another striker who just slotted in. We had Marcus playing down the middle sometimes. Martial's broken. So he brings in Wout Weghorst on loan because we've got no money. He was a guy that can't even get in Burnley's team. And he had to do that, and he had to deal with it. And no one really gave him any props for that. It was like, it was almost ignored. Or it was even used as a sort of stick to beat him with, the fact that he brought in Weghorst. Yet we still managed to finish third and win a trophy.
The counter to that would be, he didn't give him money to replace Ronaldo directly, but they'd give him 80 million to spend on Anthony, who he brought from Ajax.
Yeah, but wasn't
we didn't know Ronaldo.
Ronaldo was still at the club when Anthony arrived.
Yeah,
because I'm sure Ronaldo left after the window shut.
Yeah, because
also in January, you can't. I don't think it's fair to say your striker's gone, your other striker's injured, but you spent money on a right winger or a left winger. No, a right winger. Sorry. So we're not going to help you get a striker. Like, if you look at United in January, like teams like Bournemouth and Leeds spent more than us in January. Even City spent more than us in January, and they were flying.
I think we
spent nothing in January.
Yeah, the reason we didn't spend that much in January is because we spent nearly over 200 million last summer.
You couldn't lose your top scorer, right? Like we do Ronaldo, and you've got another striker injured.
We have spent
as Man United, right? I'm sorry, there's money there. There's money there that they could have gone right. Here's like Arsenal spent, 20-odd million on Trossard. We could have gone out and got a striker. We could have paid the 15 million, whatever it was, to get.
But didn't United have a financial fair play? Was it a fine that we got at that period of time? United were tiptoeing around some FFP issues around that time as well.
FFP, but again, part of that comes back to being bad in the transfer market and overpaying.
Yeah, it's been bad in the transfer market. I think if United thought they could have bought, and this is down to.
And also, it's not Ten Hag's fault that he loses his top scorer. I don't blame Ten Hag for the Ronaldo situation. No. My point I was making before is he loses his top scorer. He loses Martial basically for the entire season through injury. He played a quarter of the games, if that. And no one actually really gives him any credit for that.
No.
Because he's stuck with that and he's got no money and he goes out and gets a striker. And I know, I'm not saying Weghorst was great, but he served a purpose for a long time. Certainly brought out the best in Marcus for a few months. So he made it work to the point where we finished third and won a trophy. How often do United do that?
Yeah, we've got this thing as well, United.
Now, Ten Hag definitely, but Ten Hag did get praised though.
I don't think he did. Not in the media and everything else, bro.
I think that's actually worked against him, though.
For the way Ronaldo, and you see compared to Postecoglou as well with the Kane thing, I think it's not really the same.
Because you know why? Because last season, even though we finished third and we won a trophy, and we definitely saw progression, there was a lot of that. Those peaks and troughs though? Because there were parts of the season where we're kind of like we're getting battered by Brighton and underwhelming results. But I definitely thought Ten Hag got a decent amount of credit, but you can't really do the Tottenham comparison because there's not really, in all due respect to Tottenham, there's not really a comparison between United and Spurs.
That's another issue that United have.
Exactly.
What I mean?
No one else has the expectations United has, even though quality-wise, we don't really deserve them.
Spurs have always been a hipster club that play really exciting football and play really almost like you don't respect them to the extent of thinking they're ever going to win anything or going to be challenging anything, but people usually enjoy watching them. They're usually involved in really exciting games or whatever. Almost like a harmless football club. That if you're not Arsenal, you don't give a fuck about.
We've done it with Spurs. I've said it when Spurs were flying high for those first 9 games, whatever it was. I said it because we were already out of it. I'd love it if Spurs won the league because it'd feel like I wouldn't care. Yeah. Whereas if City win it, if Arsenal win it, if certainly Liverpool win it, I'll be gutted. Whereas with Spurs win it, it'd feel like Leicester winning it. Yeah. I'd be actually happy because it meant City or Scousers.
I'm going to go back to what you're saying because the whole Ange Ten Hag comparison, being United manager, being Tottenham manager, it's a completely different kettle of fish. Yeah. I know that we are complaining about that and we are highlighting that, but that is just the fact.
I don't think there's a comparable team to Man United. Well, I think the closest thing. So when United players lose, when United managers lose games or United lose games, the phrase you hear a lot is stuff like, yeah, but this is Manchester United. This is you can't do that at Manchester United. These are the standards at Manchester United. Where if a Tottenham manager finishes 5th one year, no one goes, this is Tottenham. You have to. No one cares. I even think Arsenal. Those first few years under Arteta, he got away and was helped by the fact that over the last 15 years before that, no one was saying, but this is Arsenal, this is the great Arsenal anymore. I think if Pep started losing loads of games, he'd get a lot of credit in the bank, obviously, for what he's done. But I think at some point people will start saying, it doesn't matter about the injuries, this is Manchester City, they win anyway. Even Liverpool haven't got enough credit in the bank where, Klopp can have massively off seasons and no one ever really questions him. The pressure never really gets to him because of what he's done to a certain extent. But also, people recognise that for 30 years, Liverpool haven't been held to these standards before. United are still almost held to the standard of Sir Alex, or not quite. It's dropped a little bit. But now, if you don't finish outside the top 4, everyone is telling you Manchester United must sack their manager because this is Manchester United we're talking about.
Right, but
and yet we don't back that up. No, but I'm going to say it again. No, I'm going to say it again. It's just different set of standards. United is one of the biggest football clubs in the world. There's standards there as a United manager that aren't the same as Tottenham. That's exactly what I mean. That's what I'm saying.
So I'm saying. So it's a false equivalence anyway. So and as fans as well, as United fans, we expect more from United than Spurs fans are going to expect from Spurs. So when, if we're watching us against, I know we've won games against the likes of Luton 1-0 and the performances aren't great and we're not seeing the style of play you want, I know you're talking about injuries, etc. Yeah. There's just going to be a different level of scrutiny and that's going to come from media, that's going to come from fans, that's going to come from me. It's just that's just the way it is. It's not the same. So the
point I'm making is that it's the United standards are not based in the reality of our current squad and our current success. It is based in the history of the last 15,
I wouldn't want it
years.
to be within the bit as...
Is that not unfair?
That ends up with managers getting sacked. Our position, our league finishers have been very similar to Tottenham's in the last 10 years, very similar to Chelsea's in the last 10 years.
And that's a problem. Yeah, I think that's what United fans are sick of.
But at some point, do we have to say, actually, here's where we are. Here's the reality of what Manchester United is and has been for the last 10 years. To get back to the top is going to take a little bit of ups and downs. But, overall, we end up going upwards. This whole thing of if you finish outside the top 4, you're sacked. If you take a backward step, you're sacked. If you don't win a trophy, you're sacked. Every other club gives their managers a little bit of a chance. Look at Arsenal, a perfect example. I think it took Arteta 3 years to actually step into the top 4.
Yeah, but I think there's only so far you can drop your mental standards though, as a United fan of thinking, it's all right if I'm top 4, and then you come up with all these obstacles and excuses, etc. We can't. It's literally we've not won a title in 10 years, right? Yeah. And we got to be careful of almost sleepwalking into this little slumber where we get to a point where it might take us another 10, 15 years to return. And I think a lot of United fans still feel that way. So it's one of them where, you can say, we finished at top 4 because we've all these injuries and we're not spending money on a striker and spending all this and that, whatever. But the bottom line is, football's a results game business. It's all about results and what you produce, especially at a club like United. And if the results aren't catching up to City or challenging Arsenal or whatever, and we're going week in comparing ourselves to likes of Tottenham and Newcastle and...
But you talk about Arsenal there, they did have that patience. They, for the first 3 years, said to Arteta, it's okay that you aren't catching City. And actually, you're getting worse. You finished 5th, then you finished 8th, then you finished 8th again, and haven't won any trophies since the first season. They said, we trust you. Obviously, I'm not saying that we shouldn't trust. Manager the keys to United.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that we shouldn't trust, but I don't...
This idea that we have to get better every single year or you're sacked, progress isn't always linear, is it?
It's not, but my point is, I still want to, like, when we're looking at United play and the way we're going in a direction, we still want to be almost knowing that we can be critical. We don't want to, like, excuse everything to the point where, like,
I wouldn't
go that far.
Excuse, I can't agree with what you're saying, though, because I think, and I've said this many times, I think Ten Hag, the part of the problem is, and you mentioned there about United, we have an expectation and we have to do things. I think one of the things that Eric Ten Hag had to do was he had to have a good first season. He had to have that initial success. Now, I've criticised some of his signings. I have. Anthony, I think, is an absolute waste of money. But there's sort of the one where I'll give him sort of a little bit of credit, or it's not all his fault, is if he's saying to the board, you know, I want a De Jong, or I want a Rabiot, or I want a this and that, the other, and they're going, we can't get that, we can give you Casemiro though. Yeah. But it's 70 million quid and he's got on a 4-year deal. Is he going to say, nah, don't get me Casemiro, who might win me a trophy and get me top 4? Don't get me anyone. No, he'll take Casemiro. If he's saying I want Anthony, it's gone from 35 million to 75 million or whatever, and it's like the last week of the transfer window and they're going, we can get a deal over the line. He's going to take that. Now, he did the initial thing, and Fergie did it. Fergie, in his first full season, finished second, and then we had 2 seasons where we tailed off. Now, there might be a little bit of that with Eric Ten Hag, where he's had that initial instant thing, instant success, which gives him a little bit of patience. But I personally want to see that patience being given, because I think he is the right manager for the job. I think if we stick with this guy, like Arsenal did to a certain degree, and I hate comparing us to Arsenal, but it's probably the most fitting sort of relative club you can look at in terms of the manager recently, where they went with Arteta. We can see what he's doing long term behind the scenes. Yep. It's working, give him time. I want to see United give this guy time, because I know people say, well, we was here under Jose after the first season where we won them 2 trophies and everything, and we finished second in his second season. But there was all sorts going on with Jose, and you knew that. Ollie, there was always that thing of, has he really cut out for it in terms of his CV and all the rest of it? I feel like Ten Hag, for me, is the right man, and I feel like if we gave him patience, it will come good. The big question now is, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his merry band of management team coming, is he going to get it? Because I don't know. I'm not going to sit and pretend they'll definitely go, you're my guy.
I hope so,
because you alluded to earlier, the big sort of issue that Eric Ten Hag has got, and there's no escaping this, even with a lot of United fans, you mentioned it earlier, you mentioned it, some of those defeats. Some of those defeats, you can't ignore all that. You can't ignore like the 7-0 and the 6-3. Some people look at it and go, when the things start going wrong, you will have an element of...
people accumulating that.
And I hate that, but it's true, because I've been, and that's not just fans online, that's fans in the stadium, it's all United fans. I've spoken to fans online, I've spoken to fans at the stadium where they've gone, bro, though, you know what? That game at Anfield, that first half against City, you know what I mean? This guy, that even to a lesser degree, you know, that performance against Brighton or whatever. So he's got to be careful, but I do think he's the right guy. What's the comments getting before we...
there's a lot of mixed opinions in the comments, as I'm sure you can imagine. A lot of people talking about giving him patience, and people talking about how, you know, other teams have taken a few years to get going, especially ones that have had, you know, multiple years away from challenging. I think Chelsea managed to sort of daisy chain managers and titles, didn't they, for that spell while you had Terry and Lampard.
They did the whole...
They had that sort of core, didn't they?
Yeah. But they always did that.
Czech, Terry, Lampard.
That spine. And then Kante.
Yeah. But I think of the teams and the managers, or the teams, sorry, that have had a good spell away from challenging, to get back into challenging, it's taken multiple years every single time. Like, you know, other than Jose coming to Chelsea, no one has come into a club in the Premier League era, really, certainly post-2000, and won the big trophies instantly. It hasn't happened. Everyone has taken multiple years of stagnation and then growth and then ups and downs, and then you get there. And I think
because you are right about success and progression not always being linear. I think because we was on the right trajectory last season, it was definitely an improvement. We saw bits of a style of play. We finished third, won a trophy for the first time in a few years. Everything was on the up. So I think there was expectation that was kind of raised in the summer. Then we went out, we did spend a little bit of money, and then didn't necessarily get our first choice targets. And then we've gone into the season with expectations of thinking United could be actually thereabouts if everything goes to pulls together. Especially with Chelsea being underwhelming last season, Liverpool being underwhelming last season, and then we've had a very strange start to the season. We've got some positives, we've got some negatives, and obviously after the loss to Copenhagen, was that like we lost 9 of our first 17 games in all competitions or whatever. But then you actually look at the league table, and then we 6-7 points off top somehow. 7. Yes, and it's like, I think we've almost got to be positive in a sense of thinking we're not too far away, and then we've actually won games that we've not performed. So it gives us a little bit of positivity for when we actually find our form. Because I think there's only so long that United can play so disjointed and not control games and everything look kind of shoddy. And I thought the first 15, 20 minutes at Copenhagen was very, very promising. Because I thought that looked like something that we could actually build upon in terms of we changed the setup a little bit to a 2-4 build-up from what you've seen, and it looked like it kind of suited the team a little bit better. Yeah. So I think when things actually do kick into gear, we can, obviously it's a long football season, there's a lot of games to go, but I think we just want to see things almost a little bit more excitement, because at the end of the day, football is entertainment. And I think when we win 1-0 against Luton, or we missed a couple of chances, I think we United fans want to be a little bit more entertained. But even though the week before, Liverpool struggled against Luton and drew 1-0. So it's
just on all this, there's a sort of, timely reminder. It says Bobby Charlton's funeral today. Everyone been out paying their respects to him. We've seen the sort of the world of football come out to pay respects to. For I think we can all agree, one of the most iconic sports people of all time. I could be the greatest English sports person ever. Certainly for me, the greatest United player ever, for a multitude of reasons. We was listening earlier. We was upstairs listening to Sir Alex Ferguson. He was sort of speaking at the funeral just outside. He got stopped, I think, by Hayley McQueen, and he said that when he was at United and he had a little bit of a struggle, Bobby Charlton had his back. He said Bobby Charlton's one of the reasons he came to the club, and then he always had that backing of someone in the club who understood football, was as respected as anyone has ever been in the game, and would argue for giving him a bit of patience. And we was asking about that with Ten Hag, and like what's going to happen with him. Has he got someone in there that's fighting his corner from the football side of things? Because we're in all these new people coming in, this Paul Mitchell maybe, or Dougie Friedman, or whoever. And you just wonder, is there that sort of figure who's going to be like, look, who understands football and understands or believes in Eric Ten Hag? Because if he's got someone like that, he might.
It's actually great. Like United,
could help.
Just literally stuff like a proper directors of football, people in them type of places at a club like United could be so powerful. That could literally be the pendulum swinger for United to be like shooting back that way. And it just shows you like something like that, especially if they do come in and they make a bigger difference as they can do. It's going to be such a bigger indictment on like the Glazers' tenure and like how incompetent they've been from basically start to finish, and how they've almost set the framework of the club. Because we're talking about managers and Ten Hag struggles at certain times, but actually statistically he's been probably one of our better managers.
30 wins. He got to 30 wins the same amount of time as it took Sir Alex Ferguson. I know it's different time in here and all that, but I think he got to 30 wins quicker than Arteta did and quicker than Klopp did. 30 league wins, I think it is. But
it's just. But I think any manager that comes into United though under the Glazers' tenure is up against it from the get-go.
100%.
So sometimes we do have to also think about that, because
sorry, go on.
As we spoke about a few weeks ago, me and Jonah live talking about how like the setups at the other clubs that are doing well, how they're so stable. We talk about, because quite often we talk about cores of football teams, centre half, midfield. We don't always talk about the cores behind that in terms of the manager to the director of football, to the CEO, to everyone almost being in unison in the way that they're thinking, and it being like a certain level of connectivity. And there's never been that United in the past 10, 15 years. We talked about obviously Edu and Arteta, and then you've got the Tiki and Pep, and then Sheikh Mansour, and then you've got the guy that brought in from Brighton at Newcastle, and Eddie Howe, and obviously there's like a bit of there's a system there. Obviously, we talked about how structurally good it is at Brighton as well, whereas United don't have that. No. And United are such a big football club that just them people being in the right places could make United a powerhouse again before you even know it. I'm not saying overnight, but won't be far off.
Yeah, I think Ten Hag getting the backing of a new CEO and a new owner and a new director of football would be massive. And I've mentioned it before, but I do think the idea of like people just reduce coaches and players and staff members and people to stats and data, and here's their playing style and here's their tactical style and here's this, that. What they don't take into account, or a lot of people don't take into account, especially this sort of tactics, stats-driven reduction of football, is that people have personalities and confidence and things going on at home, and how things are spoken about generally across a business, and how people are talk to each other, and how people work alongside each other are massive things. Like two players can have their own stats, but then those two players together create a different way of attacking, and it's the same above that. Like someone like John Murtough, again, I don't know enough about him to say with confidence that he doesn't have these things, but does he have the trust of the CEO? Does he have the trust of the manager, of the players, of the owners? Does he have the trust, and do people believe in him, and are people slightly afraid of him around Europe and around other football clubs, and they go, actually, he takes no shit, this guy gets the job done, and he gets the manager he wants, he gets the players he wants? Does he have that reputation? And I don't know if he does. And I think when the new owners and the potentially the new people come in, someone like Paul Mitchell, someone like Jean-Claude Blanc, who you look at his CV, and even if you want to say, well, he's not, he was the CEO at Juventus, he was the head of marketing and commercial at PSG when they went and completely overhauled their entire operation and became one of the biggest brands in the world. He oversaw and ran the Paralympic Games, the Tour de France. He's someone with an astonishing CV.
And that Dave Brailsford as well.
Dave Brailsford, another one. What's he got? Jean-Claude Blanc's got a master's from Harvard, and Paul Mitchell, you look at what he's done at MK Dons, at Southampton, at Spurs, at Leipzig, at Monaco. These are people where you look at them and go, shit, if they say it, it's probably true. And if they come out and say, this is the manager, this is the guy, that might change how the players think, how the press think, how other teams across Europe think. They might, people's backing and people's confidence means a lot. And I don't think we've got people at the minute at Manchester United where you go, oh shit, John Murtough and Richard Arnold are backing this guy, he must be really good. I think we need people in there who not just can they do good things, but other people trust their opinion. I think that's a massive thing.
Because I don't know anything about anything in terms of ITK, but I heard from someone I respect a lot, who works at United, and they said that when John Murtough came in, there was a little bit of lack of respect from certain people about him. People looking at him and going, and he didn't carry himself perhaps, or didn't make a good first impression on a few people there with certain things he said, and he doesn't have that background and that CV and that reputation.
Yeah,
so
that's a big thing.
You've got to earn that.
Yeah.
So it makes it a bit difficult because it's almost like the Steve Round effect, isn't it? You remember we had Steve Round as a coach,
yeah.
and people don't like, who are you?
And
you know what I mean? Well, no, I'm not doing that.
It goes all the way through. And the players have the same thing.
Steve Round, or you're on about the Kurt Angle?
People, what was his name?
Armour.
Chris Armour.
AirPod.
He was the new one. Yeah, like they called him. What did they call him? Ted Lasso. They called him. Well, going back to the Moyes era, it was Jimmy Lumsden and Steve Round replacing the likes of Rennie Merlinstein and Mike Phelan. Yeah, it was just insane.
You see it a lot in other sports as well.
Yeah, I forgot about Chris Armour. Yeah,
where not just is one player's quality. Again, it's not just the stats, the goals and assists, or the touchdowns, or the points in NBA that they score. It's how the opposition approaches them based on their qualities. Yeah. That's a stat you can't really measure. Like I was watching, I think it was Chiefs Dolphins last week, and Travis Kelce was one of their best players, barely touched the ball because the opposition are obsessed with stopping him getting it. So that leaves space elsewhere. And this happens throughout all businesses all the time. If people react differently to people based on what they do, and that can leave space elsewhere, that can leave gaps, that can allow people to assert dominance and control in different areas. But there's no stat or data for that. And I think United need people who at every level, on the pitch, off the pitch and above, people go, you don't want to mess with them. And actually, they get the job done and they're very good at it. And I think that will help everything massively. Like, you can't even overstate how big it is.
I remember, seeing an interview, and I hate him, but he said once, Graham Souness, when he was at Liverpool, and when he came in as manager, he always said about United, he said, if that lot down the road get their act together, we're in serious trouble.
Yeah.
And we did, and he was. And I think there'll be an element of that in football now. People looking at us going, if United get their act together and start doing what they should have been doing for the last 15 years, whatever, or since Fergie retired, I should say, then everyone else is going to be in serious trouble, because we've got the stature, we've got the money, really. We've got the ability.
Once we get a bit of momentum and fear.
We've got players that were like, it's weird because a lot of the players that we do sign were good before us.
Yeah,
that's another of the concerns. It just talks about like there's like a bit of an issue at the club culturally, and that also starts from the Glazers.
Yeah. Can I just read a couple of
super chats, then we'll get into Wally of the week.
Nick Collins says, hey guys, there was an article recently that Paul Mitchell was at Getafe potentially watching Greenwood. What's your thoughts on this? I mean, we don't know if he was there and who he was watching, but even if he was there and he was only there to watch Mason Greenwood, he's still a Manchester United player. Like, regardless of
that could be anything as well. That could be with the view to selling him. That could be view to anything.
So they think that he's playing over there, and then like the whole of Manchester United folk will just forget about him.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I think, and also Paul Mitchell isn't an employee of Manchester United, so he could have been there for any number of reasons. One of which is Mason Greenwood for Manchester United. But even if it was, we need to see what he's doing. What how things are. Obviously, we need to keep track of these things. I won't read too much into it. And Sam Z says ESPN are worse than TalkSport in terms of anti-United crowd. ESPN is supposed to be respectable and serious, but not with United.
I agree with that. Some of the stuff you see, especially on their social media about United, is just beyond a joke. Wally of the week, Ronaldo Brown. Give us your. Ooh, there's been several contenders. I've got a phone book's worth, to be honest with you. I am mentally sifting them into some order so I can find out who's going to be top at the minute, because there's been a lot.
I always forget that I need to think of that before I come in here. You might have to go before me.
Okay, brother. Go on, Joseph. Who's your Wally of the week?
Oh, it's got to be the Conservative Party, hasn't it?
Just lovely.
Sorry
lovely.
to nick yours.
Yeah, it's okay.
I mean, more cabinet reshuffles than IKEA. It's absolutely astonishing how coming and going.
That was prepped.
I thought of it on the spot. I can assure you of that.
We don't prep on this show. You know that better than anyone.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's just like, your shit, you come back. And then to absolutely dig up David Cameron in some
it's like Cluedo or something, and it's like Professor Green in the library with a candlestick.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll have Dave Cameron back to the Tories as Foreign Secretary.
Yeah, we thought.
You know what I mean?
Like, thought he was gone. We're bringing him back. Like, just despicable.
And it's great that he's not an MP, so he can't be challenged in Parliament for any decisions that he makes as Foreign Secretary. It makes it even better. Have you got anyone?
Do you know, if I do a football one, I'll do it from the interview. Like, you see the interview yesterday with Raheem Sterling and Cole Palmer?
That was like pulling teeth. I felt sorry. Me and my missus said to me, we were watching it, and she went, fair play at the interviewer, he's trying. Because he was like, I thought he was like trying.
It seemed like they hated him.
I know, and it was like,
but then
Sterling kept doing this thing where he's covering his mouth, and he's doing that, and he was like, and he was just repeating a question basically. And then Cole Palmer, who's a kid, he's only young and he's not done many interviews. I get it, and he did say a couple of things.
It's the whole grass in the eye thing. Like, let me pick it out for you. Thing.
Yeah,
that was cringy.
You're not on a date.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Touch the face of a person
I feel like there was a bit of trying to put your hand in the face of a grown man to put grass out of his eye. Without him asking.
That was a bit bad. Do you know what my Wally of the week? It's a collective, and there could have been lots of them.
Oh, I've got another one.
Go on, you're getting it, man. It's the train station brigade. I don't know if you've seen this clip. You might have seen this. A bunch of racists running around a train station in London, giving grief to everyone. They've all been like exposed on social media. One of them was in an Arsenal top, and Arsenal fans were going mad, saying we don't want him at our club. You can, go and follow someone else. And it was one of those things where they were saying you can go and follow Chelsea, and Chelsea fans were saying we don't want him. And then
we don't want him. He's not racist.
He's not racist. Yeah, he's a train letting black people on it. What's he doing? So yeah, just all them lot. If you've seen the clip, they're just an absolute bunch of knobheads running around a train station, giving grief to people, saying things like, I was born in this country. Like utter nonsense, and they've all been exposed for the loons they are, or idiots they are, I should say.
Can I have one more?
Of course you can.
I don't know if this has ever been done before, but my Wally of the week, and it might be my Wally of the last 18 months, is shops and companies now where they do this thing where the membership price is this and the normal price is this.
Like club cards.
Club card. Yeah. But Go Outdoors are astonishing with it.
Go Outdoors?
It's like they do like walking gear and like trainers and that. And like, there's loads of shops that do it. Tesco do it, loads of them do it. Where it's like the club card price or the card price is actually what used to be the normal price. Yeah. And then what they do is, to make it so you have to sign up, they put their non-members price as like twice as much. When actually what they're doing is you sign up for a membership, then they're selling your data, making extra money off your email address, your home address, all this stuff that you have to give them, making extra money off of that. You lose more security and privacy, and then you don't even get a discount. You just get the price that it was 2 months ago before they brought in the membership scheme. It's a scam, it's disgraceful, and it needs to be stopped. You can't be putting the market price of items behind a paywall. Disgusting.
Edward Snowdenism.
I hate it.
This sounds right up your street.
But it is though.
What to do with our data? This sounds like the sort of thing he gets his teeth in.
You're a Snowdenist.
But every so often though, it's not even like a Snowdenist thing. Even if you don't care about my civil liberties and all that, I'm not big into all that. But even though that thing, every so often you just get an email saying there's been a data breach at Go Outdoors, and some hacker has got everything about you. Like, I don't know, I just think it shouldn't be the case that you have to sign up for something to get the normal price.
No,
it's a scam, and I hate it.
I think the club card things are like, I have got a club card now, but it's like, without that, it's brutal in Tesco's. Seriously, you don't even want to know. Anyway, enough about club cards and go outdoors and racists in train stations
grass.
and touching grass in the eyes when you're doing an interview. Ronaldo, always a pleasure. Where can people find you, my friend?
Find me on the X at Ronaldo Brown _98.
You know where to find Joe. You've got a big interview coming up tomorrow, haven't you, Arkin?
Yeah, been chatting with Kieran Maguire, the football finance expert, giving us the absolute lowdown on the Jim Ratcliffe takeover, what it means for United, some of the detail on shares that I never knew, which is fantastic.
It's an education, isn't it?
It's an absolute education. So make sure you check that out tomorrow. Sort of basically full details on what's going on with Jim Ratcliffe and Manchester United.
Looking forward to that one. You know where to find me, Jay Motti, on all your socials. That's been Ronaldo Brown. That's been Joe Smith. I'm Jay. This has been, the Paddock Podcast. Thanks for watching.